Kid's got attitude, a closet full of hoodies, and a thing for snapbacks, probably because life handed him the short end of the stick early on. Dad, dead. Mom, constantly bringing home sketchy dudes who seem like they crawled straight out of a pub and into her bed. And Eggsy, he's had enough of the soap opera at home, so he takes off to blow off steam with the boys. So where do they go? A bar, obviously. But because this is that kind of story, guess who he runs into? One of his mom's boyfriend's henchmen. Real charmers. A few words fly, a few glares are exchanged, and before you know it, Eggsy's tossed out on the curb, beer wasted, pride dented. But don't worry, Eggsy's not the type to walk away quietly. Turns out, while they were busy flexing their muscles, Eggsy helped himself to their car keys. And wouldn't you know it, their bright yellow Subaru is sitting right there like it's begging to be stolen. Cue screeching tires and a whole lot of smoke as Eggsy pulls a fast and furious move right in front of the bar. The thugs bolt outside just in time to see their beloved ride doing donuts like it's auditioning for a street race. They freak, obviously. Start blowing up their boss's phone, screaming about their stolen car and the punk who jacked it. But before they can finish their tantrum, guess who comes back? Yup, Eggsy. He pulls a U-turn like this is a GTA side mission. Swerving, drifting, barely touching the brakes. It's like chaos is his native language. Then, because of course it happens, a random cat appears in the middle of the road. Eggsy swerves, slams into a parked car, and that's game over. The sirens close in, no time to argue, so he tells his mates to bail. He'll take the fall. At the station, the cop in charge gives him the classic, "Don't be stupid, kid talk." If Eggsy takes the blame solo, it's 15 months behind bars. But Eggsy, he's got one last move. He pulls out this necklace he's always worn, stares at it like it's a cheat code. On the back, a number. Flashback time 17 years ago, Eggsy's dad was part of some secret spy organization. On one mission, he sacrificed himself to save his teammate, a guy named Harry. After the funeral, Harry showed up at their door, handed over the necklace, and told little Eggsy, "If you're ever in serious trouble, use this." So Eggsy calls the number, and just like that, the charges vanish. No jail time, no lectures, he walks out of the station like nothing happened. But waiting outside, that same mysterious man from 17 years ago, looking exactly the same, sharp suit, polished shoes, and a gaze that says, "I know things you don't." His name's Harry, and he works at a tailor shop called Kingsman. Harry had already gone through Eggsy's file. He knew the kid had raw potential, fast reflexes, sharp mind, sharper tongue. But without a father's guidance, that potential went sideways fast. Now he was just another wasted talent in a tracksuit. Still, Harry wasn't ready to give up on him. As the two sat in a quiet bar chatting, the door creaked open. A pack of local thugs swaggered in like they owned the place. Turns out, Eggsy's mom's latest scumbag boyfriend didn't appreciate hearing that his lackeys got wrecked at the pub. So, he sent in the backup crew to remind Eggsy who's boss, Harry. He tried to keep it classy. He stood up, clearly interested in a pub brawl. But as he strolled toward the door, one of the meatheads decided to get smart and threw an insult his way. Big mistake. Without a word, Harry calmly locked the bar door behind him. And just like that, the gentleman gloves came off. You see, Harry isn't just a well-dressed man with good manners, he's a walking armory with an umbrella. And in less time than it takes to order a pint, he wipes the floor with all 5 of them. The umbrella. Not just for rain, it shoots electric shocks that drop guys like a bad whiff for connection. And when one of them actually pulls out a gun and starts firing, Harry blocks every bullet with the umbrella like it's nothing. The whole room's in chaos except for him, still composed, still unbothered. The bar owner, panicked, reaches for the phone to call the cops. Harry casually raises his watch. Click, a tiny dart flies out, hits the guy square in the neck. Instant knockout, no memory, no problem. Then, just to put a little extra fear into Eggsy, Harry turns the watch on him. Eggsy flinches, stammers, swears he won't tell a soul what he just saw. Harry gives him a satisfied nod, pats his shoulder like a teacher grading a promising student, and walks out. But Harry wasn't done with Eggsy. Not by a long shot. Back at home, things got worse. His mom's boyfriend was furious, laid into Eggsy with fists and a knife, demanded to know who wrecked his crew at the bar. But Eggsy, kid held his ground, not a word about Harry. Good thing too, because that shoulder pat came with a little bonus, a bug. Harry had been listening the whole time. Suddenly his voice echoed through the apartment. The thug froze, knife still in hand. Harry told Eggsy to leave now. Go to the tailor shop he mentioned earlier. Problem? The goons had blocked the stairwell. Didn't matter. Eggsy vaulted out the window, leapt across to the neighboring building like he was born for parkour, and disappeared into the night. The thugs were left on the landing, cursing into the wind. Soon after, Eggsy arrived at the shop Harry mentioned. Not just any tailor shop, the tailor shop Kingsman founded in 1849, maker of suits for the royal family. But this was no ordinary boutique. Without a word, Harry led him into fitting room number 1. He placed a finger on the mirror, scanned his print, and suddenly the whole room started moving. The floor dropped beneath them, revealing a hidden elevator. As they descended, Harry finally told Eggsy the truth. Kingsman wasn't just about bespoke suits and silk ties. It was a front for a secret spy organization, founded in 1919 by a group of elite tailors with deep pockets and deeper secrets. Eggsy was taken for a ride, literally. When the doors opened at headquarters, what lay before him was jaw-drop in a massive subterranean facility, part arsenal, part fortress. Helicopters, tanks, weapons, tech he'd only seen in sci-fi movies. It was all real. That's when he met Merlin, a bald, sharp-tongued trainer with a no-nonsense attitude and a clipboard that probably knew more about you than your own mum. Merlin was in charge of the Kingsman recruitment program in Eggsy. He was now officially a candidate, but he wasn't alone. Lined up next to him were other recruits. Posh kids, mostly from elite universities like Oxford and Cambridge. Meanwhile, somewhere on a snow-blasted mountaintop, the world's balance was about to shift. A Kingsman agent was in the middle of a daring rescue, extracting a kidnapped meteorologist from a terrorist cell. He fought like a pro and took down several enemies. But just as they were escaping, she appeared, a woman with blades for legs. Not metaphorically, literally. Razor-sharp titanium blades extending from her prosthetics. In one swift, terrifying motion, she sliced the agent clean in half. Cold, precise, unstoppable. Her name, Gazelle. And she wasn't working alone. She served Valentine, a billionaire tech mogul hailed as a genius, worshipped by the powerful. Presidents, diplomats, CEOs, all in his pocket. But behind the flashy sneakers and lisping charm, Valentine harbored a twisted vision for humanity's future. He even brought in a European princess to pitch his plan. But once she realized what he was up to, she rejected him outright. Crazy, she called him. Suicidal, she tried to leave. Wrong move. Her bodyguards never stood a chance against Gazelle. With inhuman speed and surgical grace, she tore through them like paper. The princess, now a prisoner, just one more pawn in Valentine's game. Back at Kingsman HQ, with one agent dead, they needed a replacement fast, and the competition to earn that title had begun. Eggsy, still reeling from the insanity of it all, found himself mocked again, this time by classmates who thought their tailored suits made them superior. But while they whispered and laughed, the girls in the program noticed Eggsy's confidence and grit. He wasn't playing their game. He had his own. He thought the training would be push-ups and shooting drills, standard boot camp stuff. He was wrong. That very night, while everyone slept peacefully in their bunk room, Eggsy shot awake. Something was wrong. Water was pouring in from every corner. Within seconds, the entire room was flooding, rising fast. One girl had the idea to use the shower head to reach air, so the group scrambled to the tubs, trying to survive. But Eggsy didn't follow the crowd. He swam for the door, slamming his shoulder into it again and again. Locked. The others managed to jam the shower head into the toilet bowl, using the U-pipe to breathe. No one helped. Eggsy was on his own. But he wasn't done yet. Instead of panicking, he turned to the glass wall of the room, took aim, and with every last ounce of strength, smashed it. Glass shattered. Water exploded outward, flooding the corridor and flushing everyone to safety. That night, Eggsy learned two things. 1. This training wasn't about drills. It was about survival. 2. In Kingsman, you don't wait for rescue, you become it. Outside the now flooded training chamber, Merlin stood silently with a stopwatch in hand. The recruits stumbled out, drenched and gasping, proud they'd survived the test. But Merlin's face was stone. You all failed, he announced coldly. The air went still, he explained. One of the recruits, a girl, had drowned during the trial. She hadn't made it. And no one noticed. No one helped. Eggsy's grin faded. That was the moment he understood. This wasn't just training.
So much for classic army technique.
This was war, dressed in a suit. Meanwhile, Harry wasn't twiddling his thumbs while Eggsy sweated it out in the underground boot camp. He was on the hunt. One of his own had been killed, and Harry was going to find out who was behind it. He tracked down the meteorologist. But something wasn't right. Harry barely laid a hand on him before the man shrieked in agony. And then, his head exploded in a flash of pink mist, a hidden failsafe. Assassins burst into the lecture hall. Harry moved fast, dropping an explosive charge and hurling himself out a window, but not fast enough. The blast threw him hard. He survived, but barely. Back at Kingsman HQ, Harry was in a coma. Eggsy visited when he could, standing by the man who'd become more than a mentor, his only role model. But Merlin, ever focused, pulled Eggsy aside, and so the training continued. One morning, Merlin gave each recruit a simple task: choose a dog. Eggsy, still a bit rough around the edges, picked what he thought was a fierce little bruiser. Turned out, he'd chosen a pug, a fat, lazy, stubborn pug. While the other recruits were jogging with German Shepherds and Dobermans, Eggsy's pug refused to move an inch. Frustrated, he even considered using an M4A1 rifle to scare it straight. But in the end, he cradled the dog like a sulky toddler and jogged with it in his arms. Harry eventually awoke from his coma. Eggsy, relieved, stopped by to visit his pug, now obedient and well-trained, trotting proudly beside him. But there was no time for sentiment. Merlin arrived with news. The meteorologist from the attack, he'd had a chip implanted in his neck, the same kind of chip that detonated his skull when triggered remotely. and the person behind it, Valentine. Yes, that Valentine, the global tech genius, media darling, and Eggsy's personal idol. Eggsy knew all about him, flashy philanthropist, sneakerhead billionaire, and now maybe the villain pulling the strings. On that day, Valentine hosted a massive press conference. He announced a miracle of free SAM chips for the entire world, unlimited internet, free calls, forever. The public went wild. But Harry and Merlin saw through the shiny marketing. Too many of Valentine's staff had identical surgical scars on the backs of their necks. Something sinister was going on. They needed proof. Harry suited up, time to get answers. Back in training, things were reaching a boiling point. After grueling weeks of mental and physical trials, only 3 candidates remained. Eggsy, the cocky, upper-crust recruit who always mocked him, and Roxy, the sharp, beautiful classmate who actually treated Eggsy like a human being. Merlin gave them one last assignment: extract classified intel from a high-security target. No guns, no gadgets, just charm, cunning, and persuasion. The mission was real, the stakes even higher. At a bar, the remaining candidates took turns trying to charm a woman who was their designated target. She sat confidently, calm and composed, offering only faint smiles as each of them attempted to gain her trust. No matter their approach, she gave nothing away. Then came the interruption. A waiter informed her of a phone call, and she stepped away. That same waiter, moments later, turned his attention back to the 3 recruits with a knowing expression. Darkness followed. When Eggsy regained consciousness, he found himself restrained, his body tied across train tracks. The sound of metal grinding against metal echoed louder by the second. A train approached, its headlights cutting through the dark like a blade. Standing nearby, the waiter demanded information. The threat was clear: betray a comrade or be crushed. Eggsy made his choice. The train roared through the tunnel, but instead of death, there was nothing. The ropes fell away. The train had passed without harm. It had all been an elaborate simulation, another psychological gauntlet. A test not of strength or agility, but loyalty under mortal pressure. Only Eggsy had passed. One recruit had broken immediately, spilling everything. The girl held her ground. Now, just 2 remained. The process had cut through weakness, leaving only the sharpest behind. Harry had recovered by this time. Eggsy, once a streetwise kid with no direction, had come further than anyone expected. He was no longer just a candidate. He was on the threshold of something much greater. At the Kingsman tailor shop, the transformation began. Here, appearances meant everything, but appearances, like weapons, could be sharpened to kill. Harry introduced Eggsy to the armory. Just as they were about to leave the equipment room, the air shifted. From a corridor ahead, a man emerged, immaculately dressed, exuding confidence. It was Valentine. The man behind the shadows had stepped into the light. There was no violence, no confrontation. But both sides understood the truth. The real conflict had just begun. Later, Eggsy stood before the head of Kingsman. The organization, rooted in centuries of tradition, required not only skill but sacrifice. To prove ultimate loyalty, each candidate was instructed to shoot their dog. It wasn't a metaphor. Eggsy had trained his pug through every phase of the program. The bond was real. The command was absolute. The pistol in his hand was loaded. This time, there were no illusions. And now, it was down to a single moment. One pull of the trigger would decide everything. Outside the church, the sun was bright, casting long shadows across the barren land. Harry, still dazed and covered in blood, stepped out into the open. His suit was torn, his eyes empty. The chaos behind him was unimaginable. Dozens of bodies sprawled across pews and aisles, all victims of a madness none of them had understood. Valentine stood nearby, calm and collected. The experiment had gone exactly as planned. The chip embedded in each person's phone had transmitted a sound frequency that triggered uncontrollable rage, bypassing the rational mind and unleashing raw, primal violence. And now he had proof that it worked, even on a Kingsman. Before Harry could react or say a word, Valentine raised a small gun and pulled the trigger. A single bullet pierced Harry's head. Eggsy, still watching through the surveillance feed back at the house, was frozen in horror. The man who had believed in him, trained him, and introduced him to a new world, was now gone. Killed without warning in cold blood. For a long moment, he stared at the screen, refusing to believe what he had just witnessed. At Kingsman headquarters, news of Harry's death hit hard. The leader showed no emotion, but his silence said everything. Eggsy, devastated, demanded answers. Why had they allowed him to go alone? Why wasn't more done to stop Valentine? But rules were rules. Eggsy had failed his final test. He was no longer one of them. Still, something inside him had changed. Harry's death couldn't be for nothing. Eggsy refused to let Valentine succeed. With Merlin's quiet support, he slipped back into Kingsman operations. The girl who had passed the final test, now the only officially recognized new agent, was preparing to board a spacecraft as part of Valentine's secret plan. Eggsy wasn't going to let her go alone. Opening the suitcase, Eggsy was stunned. Inside lay the finely tailored suit, the polished Oxford shoes with hidden blades, the poisoned fountain pen, the voltage. Harry had believed in him until the very end. Eggsy suited up in silence. No more hesitation, no more doubt. It was time to finish what Harry started. Merlin piloted the plane low over a snow-covered mountain range. Below them lay Valentine's secret base, hidden deep beneath the earth. As Eggsy prepared to drop in, Merlin handed him a small device. It was the chip Eggsy had taken from the leader. Merlin had modified it to blend in with Valentine's inner circle. If Eggsy could install it into Valentine's system, they might be able to turn his own signal against him. Meanwhile, high above the Earth, the female agent was en route to the satellite. If she failed, the signal would cover the globe within minutes. Back on the ground, Eggsy infiltrated the mountain base by posing as one of the leader's replacements. In another chamber, billionaires and politicians from around the world sipped wine and laughed, protected by Valentine's chip, chosen to inherit the Earth once the chaos began. Everything was ready. Valentine stood on a central stage, grinning, arms open wide. He welcomed his new world with childlike glee. His assassin, the deadly woman with blade legs, stood guard by his side, watching the crowd with predator's eyes. Eggsy slipped away from the main hall and headed for the control center, but just as he reached the main server, alarms rang out. His cover was blown. Valentine's guards swarmed the area. Eggsy fought back with elegance and fury. His blade shoes slashed through attackers. His ring electrocuted another. He used every gadget Harry ever taught him to wield. And all the while, Merlin guided him through a comm in his ear, coordinating every move with tactical precision. Finally, Eggsy reached the central system and installed the modified chip. But the countdown had already begun. Valentine had pressed the activation button. Around the world, phones buzzed and high-frequency signals began to pour out. Humanity was seconds away from tearing itself apart. Then, in orbit, the female agent reached the satellite's control core. She planted explosives and retreated just in time. The satellite exploded in a blinding flash above the Earth. Valentine's signal was severed. Back in the base, chaos erupted. Valentine, enraged, ordered his assassin to kill Eggsy. Back at the aircraft, Merlin opened the weapons depot and stood aside. Inside was a dazzling arsenal of the Kingsman's most advanced gear, and the legendary umbrella with built-in ballistic shielding and a shotgun hidden in the shaft. Eggsy reached for the umbrella, his face hardening with resolve. This was more than a weapon. It was a legacy. Inside, chaos was erupting. Technicians ran from console to console as the satellite connection began restoring. A new countdown was activated. Eggsy moved like a shadow, neutralizing guards one by one. He used his glasses to identify targets, his ring to disable security systems, and his umbrella to shield against gunfire as he advanced toward the central control room. Valentine's female assassin appeared once more, blades flashing in the strobe-lit corridor. The final confrontation began. She leapt high into the air, leg blades slicing toward Eggsy. He blocked with the umbrella, countered with a burst from the shotgun, but she evaded with acrobatic grace. The fight tore through rooms, shattering glass, twisting metal, dodging lethal attacks at every step. Eggsy narrowly avoided a swipe aimed at his neck. With the poisoned blade now embedded in her arm, the knife warrior fell to the floor, unable to continue her pursuit. Her once deadly legs, now useless, seemed almost symbolic of how Valentine's entire operation was crumbling. Eggsy grabbed the knife leg from the fallen assassin and with swift precision hurled it across the room. The blade found its mark, striking Valentine directly in the chest. His eyes widened in disbelief as he crumpled to the floor, blood pooling beneath him. The mastermind's reign of terror was finally over. The world was saved, and Eggsy could breathe a sigh of relief. As Eggsy turned back toward the prison cell, he walked with purpose. The charming princess, still locked in her cell, smiled at him as the door opened. Her gratitude was obvious, but it wasn't just the mission that had changed for Eggsy. It was his entire future. And there you have it, the thrilling, action-packed journey of Eggsy as he rises from the streets to become a true Kingsman. From intense training to high-stakes missions, we've seen how one man's determination can change the fate of the world. If you enjoyed this ride, don't forget to hit that like button, share this with fellow movie fans, and subscribe for more deep dives into your favorite films. Until next time, thanks for watching.